Story of the Christmas Bells by Maryjane McCarthy. Long, long ago, in a tiny village called Lucerne, there was a beautiful little church which all the people loved. This church had been built by their forefathers generations ago from the stones and logs of their farms. It stood on a high hill, watching over the peasant homes in the valley. The people of this tiny village had always dreamed of having beautiful silver bells in their church steeple, but they were very poor and could not afford them. Year after year they hoped to save enough money to buy these bells, which would make their church complete, but the church steeple had remained empty. Nevertheless, the people loved their church, and each year on Christmas Eve, people came from near and far to enjoy the beautiful Christmas program. And because it was Christmas, those who would attend brought their most precious gift to lay at the foot of the altar in honor of the Christ of love. Far, far away from Lucerne, there lived two little girls, Mary and Margaret, who were daughters of a very poor and humble peasant farmer. The little girls were too young to understand why they could not afford to travel to the church in Lucerne. But they had heard about the beautiful service and wanted to be in the church on Christmas Eve. And at night, when they were alone, they would talk about going to Lucerne, and then they decided on a secret plan. The afternoon before Christmas was bitterly cold, and snowflakes were quickly covering the earth. Unknown to their family, Mary and Margaret quietly tiptoed out of the house and started on their long journey to the pretty church. Bundled in their heaviest coats and boots, the little girls trudged through the snow. Before sundown, they had traveled many miles and were nearing the first farmhouse on the edge of the village. As they came nearer to the farmhouse, they saw that it was barren and deserted. Tired and weary from the long journey, they decided to go into the empty house to rest for a few minutes before going further. The door was ajar, and they walked in. There were no chairs, so the little girls sat on the floor. And as they talked, they heard a strange, low-sounding noise. They stopped to listen, but all was again silent. A few minutes later, they heard the same sound. Mary quickly jumped up and ran into the next room, and there, lying in a corner, was a baby lamb. As the little girls knelt to stroke it, the lamb tried to move. The little girls leaned closer, and then they saw that the little white lamb had broken its leg. Mary and Margaret knelt down to see if they could carry the lamb to Lucerne to get help. But as the girls touched the lamb, its mournful bleat filled their hearts with sympathy. "No, we cannot move the lamb, little sister, so you will have to go to Lucerne alone." "All alone?" cried Margaret. "And you won't see the pretty church?" "No," sobbed Mary, "for we can't leave this tiny lamb alone. It is frightened by the cold and the pain in its leg. Everyone has left for church now, but when you come back after the service, bring someone to help me. Maybe a farmer could fix the lamb's leg here, and we wouldn't have to move it. You go on to the church, Margaret, and I'll stay with the little lamb and stroke it so it won't feel alone. And after a while, I'll feed it some snow and the cookie that is left in my pocket." "But I can't go alone," sobbed Margaret. "Yes, you must," said Mary. "You know your way to the church, and the little lamb needs help. It is in great pain. When you are in church, you must watch carefully every minute so you can tell me everything. I'm sure Jesus knows how much I want to be in the church, and he will understand. If you can get near the altar without bothering anyone, little sister, take this locket of mine, and when no one is looking, put it at the foot of the altar as my offering." Reluctantly, Margaret left, and Mary tried hard to keep the tears from falling. All year long they had planned this night when they would see the beautiful Christmas service together. Now their plans were forgotten. For Mary was huddled in the corner beside the cuddly little lamb, and Margaret was going to see the pretty church all alone. The church looked more beautiful than ever that night. Pine branches decorated the altar and organ, and homemade candles lighted every window. When the organ played and the people sang, the music was so beautiful that Margaret had tears in her eyes, wishing her sister were at her side. At the close of the service, the people began to bring forth their gifts. One by one they came, each bringing a special gift in honor of the Christ child. The choir had begun the closing hymn of the service when the music suddenly stopped. The minister had raised his hands for silence, and as the people listened, a celestial melody so sweet and beautiful was heard that the people sat breathless, almost afraid to believe what they heard. It was the pealing of heavenly bells in the sky, directly above the church. Sweetly did they ring, echoing and re-echoing throughout the valley. For minutes these people were silent, too mystified by these heavenly bells to say a word, but then, one by one, they rose from their seats to see what gift had been offered to make the miracle bells ring. And as they looked, they saw only Margaret, who had quietly crept to the altar to offer Mary's locket in honor of Jesus. A little girl's love was greater than her personal desire to attend the pretty church service. The true message of Christmas had been remembered. May the joyous peace and the heavenly happiness of the Christmas season be yours, now and through the new year. The end of Christmas Bells.